Hey, you're live here with TJ and Grumpy Old Man. Who do we have calling in?
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Phil.
Hey, Phil, what's up?
Phil, let me tell you something.
Grumpy.
Phil, people have been throwing shots at you for being boring today.
Isn't it funny that was the first time we ever met Phil? Was he called in on the show way back in the day?
Yeah, I like Phil.
I know. We always like Phil.
It's got to be D-cut, right?
It was D-cut.
Not
like once.
By the way.
And here's the thing. Even when he didn't mention by name, he intimated that you were one of those people.
D-cut loves me. D-cut absolutely loves me.
Honestly, we pick on Phil, but we do. Phil's great. Phil's good people. I'm just going to say that. So, Phil,
what do you think? Know your audience.
Yes, exactly. Let me ask you a question, Phil. What do you think about Kadri? You think he's going to be? You think he's already in the bag signed?
I told TJ I'm putting it at 80% at this point.
See, everyone.
I add a couple percentage.
Everyone answers that question the same way. It's like ugh. They all make the same noise. I do it too. It's like, ugh, ugh. So I take
exactly that exasperated gas.
And it's like, do you think it's a good move?
It all depends on who's moving out. I was told that Bouvillier is definitively not moving. So if you're moving out Josh Bailey, I mean, here's the thing. I was looking at the Islanders' long-term cap situation. I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 years out, right? The next 2 years, I think it's supposed to go up $1 million in 23, $1 million in 24. 24 is when they predict that the COVID debt is going to be paid off, and they're going to be able to return escrow to the normal range of like 6% or whatever it's supposed to be. And then they're going to be able to inflate the cap in 25. So in 3 years from now, by an amount that might even be up to $8 million and go into the 90s. So if that is the case, the thing to me that's more important between AAV and term is really AAV when you look at the Islanders cap situation, because by the time you reach the point where the cap explodes or is supposed to explode, they only have like 4 guys under contract.
True.
Almost everyone is gone at that point. So the real time frame that you're looking for cap flexibility is more so next year and the year after than it is after guys like Nelson, Palmieri, Pajot, Bailey, although I think Bailey would have to be the guy moving out now if you're going to make room for Kadri. So for me, at first I was thinking about it like, oh, I just hope it's not 6 years. I hope it's not 6 years, $7 million. But the more I think about it, the reality is if he wants longer term to bring down the number, that in this situation actually makes more sense. And it got me thinking that that's probably why the Rangers did 7 years with Trocheck. No one wants to do 7 years with Trocheck, but they got him for under $6 million, which is what he would have commanded if he would have gone on like a 5-year deal. A 5-year deal, he probably would have been asking for closer to $7 million. And they probably looked at it the same way. And with that calculus, we're like, well, we've got a lot of these guys coming off the books anyway, so why not?
So what do you think would be a good signing? What do you think amount and term, or term and amount, or AAV would be a good signing for I'm blanking on it.
I would say if you get him for 6.5, if you talk him down to 6.5 for 6 years, and you're shipping out Bailey, so you're only adding $1.5 million to the cap, I could stomach it. But again, you guys have been asking the question, as has everyone else, where's the fit? Is the idea that you're going to turn Barzal into a Mitch Marner type right winger, and that's how you're going to make it work? I would hope that the conversation would have been had with Barzal, and that's something that he had been okay with, given the contract situation. Now, if it comes out that they've got this thing in the bag, and all they're working on right now is lining up a location for Bailey, whether that be Anaheim or Arizona or some team with cap space, and then all of a sudden on September, whatever, you see they did that move, they signed Kadri for 6 times 6.5, and they did the Barzal long-term extension. That would be, that'd be like a sigh of relief. Okay, we got the Barzal extension a year ahead, just like we did with Polak. The Mainty's okay with this. The Mainty signed off on this. He wants to play with Kadri. He appreciates a guy with that kind of talent. And That's interesting. You know, Mitch Marner was a center. I think he was a center coming out of junior. Yeah, he was a center coming out of junior originally, and then the Leafs they turned him into a winger. They turned him into a winger. They originally had him playing with Kadri, as a matter of fact. They had him playing with Kadri. Then Babcock put him down on the fourth line because that's what Babcock would do. And then ultimately they worked Marner onto Tavares' line, and Tavares had that explosion year of 47 goals the first year in Toronto. And then they made Mitch Marner Matthews. You know, he's a very creative right winger. So if the idea is, you know, so from a stylistic standpoint, from a skating standpoint, very similar type player, I could see it and I could see how it could work. But he'd have to agree to it. Otherwise you're playing with fire.
Do you think all that has been done? Does this, I mean, like with Lou, does it seem like everything has always been miles and miles planned out ahead? I haven't always gotten that feeling from him. That's what I worry about.
Think about it like this. From Kadri's standpoint, do you think he or his agent are stupid enough to have waited this long with all the cap dollars drying out? At this point, I would have to believe they know where they're going.
I think
it's either Colorado or it's the Islanders. I think so, right? Klingberg just straight up messed up. I was listening to 32 Thoughts, and Jeff Marek said at the beginning of the year, Dallas offered him an 8-year extension in the 50s, which, if true, then his agent just cost him a lot of money.
Yep.
Because that's a really good deal for Klingberg. But I think with Kadri, knowing that he was a top 3 UFA option this year, and that cap money was going to dry up pretty quickly, I think this was done within the first 2 or 3 days, with him knowing more or less where he's going. It's one of two places. You know, these guys, here are the offers on the table. And I think he picked it already, and now it's just a matter of mechanics. I just can't imagine that they're waiting a month or a month and a half to figure out where he's going. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I can't imagine ownership is too pleased about wanting to keep this silent when they try to sell season tickets. They've got that brand spanking new arena, and they're going to have a hard time selling season tickets and a hard time putting fans in the seats as they're here waiting to release. If they've got something or the legwork done on a guy like Kadri, why they're dragging their feet on this. I believe from a dollar and cents wise, you can't be too thrilled about that as an ownership group.
I agree, which is why I don't think it would be a September thing at this point. Last year, they waited till September 1st to release all the contracts, with the exception of Pelech, because that was forced vis-a-vis arbitration. And the league wanted Lou to move his feet, so they made Pelech the first arbitration case. But I think you're right, and I think that if it's going to be announced, it's going to be announced soon. Something that I supposed, and I had sent this to you, TJ, was that keep an eye on Carolina with Jake Gardner. The Islanders, they're going to bring in a veteran defenseman. I just don't think that they're going to go with the decor of 7 players under 30. It would just be very un-Lou-like. And if the Kadri domino hasn't fallen and Carolina buys out Jake Gardner and the Islanders sign him, that would be another little tea leaf there. That would indicate that this is something that's going to happen, because he was a longtime teammate. And I could just see them trying to weave some connections together here. Like that. But I want to hear what Grumpy's point of view on this is.
Well, do you think that's enough to make the Islanders a contender next year?
They're not going to be on paper a top 6 team, if that's what you're asking. No, I think it's certainly enough to get them into the playoffs. It would certainly be the best team that they've put down on paper in the last 5 years.
I think it's a patch job. It's a patch job, and then more of a double down at the trade deadline. That's 100% what I believe that is. This is a patch job to put us in a spot where we're in the playoff picture come trade deadline, and then giving up a first plus probably a second to go ahead and add a winger there for the playoffs. That's 100% what I believe is going to happen.
So you have them doing the JT Miller trade at the deadline then.
Oof, my gosh. You think Vancouver's not going to be in the playoff picture at deadline?
No, I don't think so. And even if they are, they have to trade him anyways. They can't hold on to him. Rutherford already said they won't hold on to him. He's been asked the question many times. They're not a Stanley Cup team. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. Maybe they won't. Who knows? The Pacific is actually a very weak division, so it's possible. But they're not going to let JT Miller walk. Listen, maybe this whole thing is. I was in looking at this offseason. The best thing for a smart, and I'm not calling Lou a smart general manager, because I don't think this is the way he's going about this. He's clearly not. But any general manager who looked at the glut of forwards at UFA, right? And there were a lot of deals going on. we talked about it. Perron, that was a deal. 2 years, $4.5 million. That's fantastic. I think even Giroux's deal is a pretty good deal. 3 years, $6.5. There were a lot of good contracts that were given out this year. Many that won't go sour as things typically do in UFA. The general managers that decided to wait past the initial wave and take advantage of cap-strapped teams in the way that Ron Francis did with the Yorkstrand, that was the smartest move this year. There are still, by the way, a plethora of really, really smart moves that could be made, because there's at least 6 teams that need to still get to cap compliancy. You've got Toronto, they're over the cap and they still haven't signed Rasmus Sandin, right? If you can make a trade and bring in Rasmus Sandin on the cheap, that would be a very interesting idea. There's a whole host of those kinds of opportunities that are still out there and that still need to be done before the season, where there's still no excuse not to be able to significantly upgrade for a team like the Islanders that's sitting on a decent chunk of cap space.
Yeah, I tell you,
no, I don't think it'll make them a top. I don't think it'll make them a top 5 team. I think it'll make them a very tough 4-line team for sure, particularly those 3 lines, right? If you're rolling out a top line of Barzal, Kadri in the middle, and on the left side, let's just say Beauvillier is there, right? Beauvillier, Kadri, Barzal is like line 1. Then you've got Lee Nelson, Palmieri, Parise, Pajot, Wahlstrom. If Wahlstrom plays well, I mean, that's a very formidable top 9.
I agree. I know you mentioned it earlier. Why would Matt Barzal be willing? For me, he's potentially coming up on unrestricted free agency in 2 years. Wingers don't make anywhere near as much money as centers do. Why would he be willing to do that? Wingers
can make more than centers.
Yeah,
Mitch Marner makes $11 million.
Yeah, Mitch Marner
makes as much as John Tavares.
Yeah, Mitch Marner scores a lot more than Matt Barzal does, though.
Yes,
I mean
he does. But again, look at his numbers when he got that contract. It nowhere nearly justified the $11 million that he got.
So you think we're going to overpay Matt Barzal to keep him here and say, hey, we're going to pay you like a center, even though you're going to play wing?
It's possible. It's possible that we'll have to overpay him. Listen, there are only 7 centers in the league that make 8 figures plus. I think we've discussed this before, right? And each of them had ridiculous resumes justified, including John Tavares, right, who was for multiple years near a point per game player, a multiple 30-goal scorer, a guy who really carried the team on his back. Barzal, from a statistics standpoint, outside of the rookie year, on a ridiculously offensively minded team, doesn't have the resume to justify getting 8 figures like any of these other guys do. If the idea is that he wants to play wing to facilitate bringing in a guy like Kadri because he thinks he'll be able to boost his point totals that way and then cash in restricted free agency next summer, maybe he doesn't want to sign right now. And he thinks that having Kadri on his line could get him to 75, 80 points. I can understand it then. I can hear the logic in that, right? He looks at the team, looks at what he has to work with right now. If we were projecting what the lineup would be today, he would probably be where he left off last year, which was with Palmieri and Parise. Right? They did Palmieri, Parise, then they did Lee and Beauvillier on the second line. Yeah, that's what it was. So for him and for his agent, if the idea is, okay, you're going to be a very creative, Gaudreau, Marner type winger, where you've got all the freedom and flexibility to, circle around the offensive zone as much as you do as a center, and you're going to be playing with a multiple 30-goal scorer in Kadri. I could hear him being on board with it.
The only thing I worry about, and Phil, I know we're going to have you on the show once the Islanders finally do announce some of the moves. Hopefully it's not going to be right before camp starts. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. But the thing I worry about is if I'm Matt Barzal's agent, I'm Matt Barzal, I don't want to sign long-term. If I'm in the school of thought that Trotz has hindered my ability to put up points and that system has hindered my ability to show my offensive talents, I'm not willing to sign for a cheaper deal than what I think my worth and value is. Again, I would want to get paid. I know they're not going to tender his RFA offer, qualifying offer. What would it be? 10 million, I think it is. I mean, I couldn't see the Islanders saying 8.4.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking it was 10, but I mean 8.4 is still
because under the old formula it would have been 10. They redid it when they redid the CBA at the when they restarted the season for COVID. They made the formula that it could only be 120% more than your AAV, where it used to be that any contract signed pre that period, the last year of your deal was the basis for your qualifying offer. So Kachuk, for example, who signed the year before Barzal, the last year of his deal, they made the actual salary 9.5. So his qualifying offer was 9.5. Barzal's salary this year is 10, but it's a formula now that's based on the AAV.
oh, okay, instead of the salary.
It's no longer based on the last year. So any contract signed from that period on, formula changed.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's at least good to know. But no, Phil, I'm hoping we're getting some news coming up Islanders way sooner rather than later. I hope, within the next week or so, we'll have some sort of development on that front. I hope we're not waiting until the start of camp or another month until we get some sort of Islanders news and some sort of answers as to which way the team's trying to head for the short term and long term.
I'm with you guys. Hopefully sooner than later.
When we do get some news, Phil, we'll try to get something scheduled out to where we got you on a Wednesday where we can have a powwow, talk a little bit about the Islanders too.
Love it. Take it easy, guys.
Hey, say hi to the girls for me.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks,
Later.
Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye.